Today I am making a dress for my haunted doll. This is the doll that I found what I believe to be human teeth inside of. Please watch my other videos about it if you're curious. So today I am just returning the vial of teeth back to the doll, as well as some crystals and other protection rituals. I am using gloves because I don't know if this could be true organic matter that I'm touching. It's always best to proceed with caution. I have been experiencing really strange things since owning this doll. Even my cat is on edge and is always protecting me when this doll is around. So to get to know more about the spirit, I am making this dress as an offering. An offering is something that I give to the spirits as a gift, almost like an olive branch. It's an attempt to make a connection with the spirit that is attached to the doll. I have never come across a doll like this before. The energy is really hard to read, so I'm hoping that she accepts my gift so we can start to form a connection together. I am dying to know more about the spirit that is attached to this doll. I really hope this dress makes her feel better. I also fixed her hair a little bit, and I will update you if I manage to make contact.
I hope this isn't real, but it's scary.
What is it? Like they literally see it?
It's scary, bro. Here, look. So this guy is in sleep paralysis, and he's been having sleep paralysis so many times throughout the week. So he decides, okay, I'm gonna get one of those cameras that can see beyond. It's one of those
like
cameras that can thermal.
Yeah.
And it will be able to show if anything's there, trying to catch a ghost or whatever. Because he's like, why am I always having sleep paralysis? Because it always feels like somebody's pressing on my chest. Usually that's what people feel whenever they have it. Look at this video.
The guy's going like this.
Right here.
Sleep paralysis is something I'm certain each and every one of you has experienced at least once
You see it?
in your life.
Yo. So you can see his chest moving.
As you can see,
And then there's like a
there is
figure.
another
It's like a
image
translucent
captured
figure,
on the thermal
and it's right on top of his chest, and it's
right
pushing
on
him,
top
and then
of
he
the
wakes up
sleeping
after.
individual. This mysterious
No.
shape resembles that
But you
of
can
a
see
human body
that's why everyone feels like
top of the
pressing on
man
the chest,
and seemingly strangling him.
because that's how it's described usually
Night
too.
viewers have pointed out that there's a lot of
Oh my God,
orbs
it's
flying
moving.
around the room as well.
This shit is moving.
So you can see it on this end, and you can see it through the camera.
Oh, that's
This
crazy.
be actual proof that demons
And it walks away, and then that's when he wakes up.
sleep
So it really could be things that you don't see.
Yeah. And
outside.
I would believe that like if it's something like it can transform into anything it wants. So it would probably transform like that thing that girl I was seeing. It was definitely like
I think that's the origin. You know why ghosts always have a sheet over them?
a sheet.
Or the classic Halloween
like
ghost costume is
yeah.
a sheet? I think that's why. I think the origin of it is the sleep paralysis demons. Because they're there. You can't see them. You can't see them. But the physical on the sheet, and usually where would they be when you're sleeping?
Under the sheet.
The bed.
It's called the Wall of Benin, and it was like the world's largest structure.
It's the Guinness Book of World Records, world's largest man-made structure by length.
And it was in Nigeria. It was the capital city, but they made interconnecting walls that stretched over 10,000 miles. It was 10,000 miles worth of walls that were like interconnected, and it was all man-made. But the British destroyed it in 1897 when they were colonizing it. But that's enough wall to circle the United States 3 times.
It says 4 times longer than the Great Wall of China.
How have I never heard of that?
That's what I'm saying. Even the people of Nigeria, like now, they don't even know about it. So like people are trying to like discover more about it to teach them of their ancient culture and stuff.
It started in 800 AD
Okay, yeah, that
and continued until 1460 AD.
yeah, they said it took 150 million man hours to build. 150 million man hours.
Very little remains today. How is that possible?
Because the British destroyed it.
all of it.
Imperialism.
Yeah. Is that not insane?
That's crazy.
Yeah, never heard of it before.
In Japan, there is a man who believes that he can win over anyone because he can. He said, and I quote, "I can even make an alien fall in love with me." This man is so popular that he earned $500,000 in just one night from women wanting to spend time with him. In Japan, he's called the King of Hosts, and he goes by one name and one name only. He is Roland. He has a YouTube channel, and he says,
Listen, ladies, people only need 3 things to live: water, food, and Roland.
He talks about himself in third person. Okay? He talks about himself in third person. During one interviewer, someone just blatantly asked the question we're all wondering, hey, what's your body count? Okay. With no hesitation, Roland says, do you drink coffee? Do you know how many cups of coffee you've had in your life?
女の子何人と遊びました？
なんだろう。普段なんかコーヒーとか飲みます？
あ、飲みます。
それ今まで何杯飲んだか覚えてますか？
And if you are curious, I did some digging, and here's one professional Redditor has to say about Roland's body count. He has been a host for around 10 years. For the sake of the argument, let's say, 10 years, that's 250 weeks. Let's be modest and not go crazy. Say he fucks 3 times a week. That's 1,560 fucks. Of course, there's gonna be weeks where he ain't fucking. Okay? And it's probably not a different girl every single fuck. But the body count has got to at least be 1,000. Yeah, at least. Which is insane if that's true.
Damn, that's 999 more than me.
Such a liar. But girlies, I better not see in the comments. I can fix him. No, okay? I see you. But maybe not this one.
Do not listen to this scary story at nighttime or right before you're going to bed. Because I love you so much, I'm giving you this warning because what the fuck? So typically I listen to a lot of Spanish scary stories because I like translating them for you guys. I typically listen to these when my husband's asleep next to me and I'm just like scrolling story through story, right? I will say when I listened to this story, I got full body chills, right? But I was like, okay, cool, I'm saving this. This is gonna be a good ass story, and I just kept going. A lot of the times you guys ask me in my comments, like, how do you sleep after reading all these stories? And I'm gonna be honest, I sleep perfectly well. Like, typically I'm not scared, and I wasn't scared last night, which is why it's so weird that I had a dream about this fucking story. I guess this story really impacted me more than I thought. So I'm gonna translate the story for you guys, and then I'm gonna tell you the dream that I had at the very end. So there was this girl, she was around 15 or 16 years old, and she lived with her mom. Unfortunately, her mom lost her job and they had no money, so they ended up losing their house as well. So one of the mom's family members tells them that they have a house that they can live in because they didn't want them to be homeless, but unfortunately this house was like away from civilization. This house was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by like hills and mountains, but since the mom and daughter had nowhere else to go, they accepted the offer and decided to go live in this house. They end up going to the house, and when they get there, they notice the strangest thing ever. Right in front of the door is this big ass tree. Like, the tree was so big that when they would try to open the front door, it would be hitting that tree. So the mom thought it was really strange that the tree would be like right in front of the front door. So the people who actually gave them a ride to that house noticed the tree as well, and they told the mom that if she wanted to, they can also help her remove that tree so that it doesn't stop the front door from opening. And she agreed, so they decided to do it then and there. When they removed that tree, on the roots of like where the tree was growing, they see like a skeleton of a baby. The mom says that it looked like maybe someone had buried the baby a very long time ago because the bones of the baby's skeleton were just being eaten by the roots of that tree. She said that they didn't end up telling anybody about it. She just, had the tree removed, they saw that, and they just like moved on with their lives. Time passes, and in this house, it's a 2-bedroom home. It's a little small, but it does have a hallway that leads to both of the rooms. Both the mom and the daughter start hearing noises in the hallway, and they realize that it sounds like a little baby. She even said it doesn't sound like an animal, it didn't sound like a kid, there was no like steps walking, it sounded like a baby playing in the hallway. So the mom almost felt guilty because she felt like something had happened there. I mean, they found the baby bones, and she just felt really bad that maybe the baby ghost was there. So she started leaving out baby toys in the hallway. I already have chills. So after leaving the toys in the hallway, the mom says that they would then start hearing this baby playing with those specific toys that were left out for it. She mentions that nothing scary would happen, but she did feel that over time, the baby's energy was growing and growing. So one day, the mom and daughter get into a really big fight. And I mean, they were screaming at each other, like they were going at it, and the daughter ends up going to her room and like slamming the door, and mom also goes to her room and slams the door. So when the mom goes goes into her room, slams the door, and sits alone, she realizes that maybe she was a little tough on her daughter. Mom felt so bad and so guilty that she's like, I'm gonna go to her room and I'm gonna, apologize and let's try to talk through it. So the mom goes and she knocks on her daughter's door, and of course the daughter didn't answer because she was pissed. After the daughter not answering her door, the mom still decided to open the door, and she starts off with, look, I really need to talk to you. And then she stays silent. The daughter was laying on her bed and she was like, what? That's when the mom was like, get up and come with me. And the daughter's like, what? And the mom's like, get up and come with me. The daughter's like, I thought you wanted to talk to me. And she goes, shut up, get up and come with me. So once the daughter realizes that something is going on because the mom was really seriously telling her to get up, she gets up. Her mom grabs her by the hand, they leave her bedroom, close her bedroom door, and the mom takes her back to her own room. So the mom explains that when she opened her daughter's door and told her, I need to talk to you, she looks at her daughter that's laying on the bed and she sees a baby on top of her daughter's chest. She says that the baby was not a normal baby. When the mom was telling her daughter, get up and come with me, that baby would hold on to her daughter even tighter, looking at the mom and smiling at her. Oh my god, look at my heart. I think the reason why I imagine these stories in my head, so I'm seeing this shit like a movie in my brain. Can you imagine? She walked in there feeling so guilty that she got into a fight with her mom, tries to talk to her and fucking sees a baby on her daughter's chest as she's telling her, get up and let's go. Baby hugs her daughter tighter while looking at her smiling. They left that house that night and never looked back, didn't go back to investigate, didn't want to know what the fuck happened there, because at that point it wasn't just a little innocent baby ghost, because she saw a baby, but it was not a normal looking baby. Now for my dream. So in my dream, I'm laying in bed. Leave it to me to take naps in my dream too. And next to me is one of my exes, because my dream wasn't scary enough. And in my dream, I'm waking up because I'm feeling something crawling up my body. And when this thing finally gets to the very top, I see a scary looking baby with fucking crazy teeth. And you know how like in your dreams you can't fight, it's like slow motion? Well, as soon as I saw that face, my hand was like trying to push it away. I mean, the baby was like biting my hand and I was like, what do I do? Because I'm moving so slowly. I was pushing that baby towards my ex, who was still asleep, because what the fuck, take him, not me. But this baby wouldn't give up. It kept trying to come at me, and to the point where I'm slowly moving my fucking head away. It doesn't sound as scary, but like it was fucked up in my dream. Okay, so the baby's still crawling, and once it's like face to face to me, I guess I got so spooked that I woke myself up. All it had to do was go to my ex, like, why the fuck would you want me? But no, I got really scared. I woke up and I was like, what the fuck was I dreaming about right now? Anyway, I hope you don't have dreams about this story.
The craziest one?
Yeah.
The push-ups. Crazy.
Oh no, that's not even the craziest
Yo,
one.
the craziest shit. Yo, he did push-ups, right?
Yeah.
How many did he do?
I'm like 50?
No, he did 17. Because if he went over 18, that would be over my...
Never mind.
Yo, he did 17 push-ups, fam.
Never mind.
What the fuck?
That's crazy.
That's crazy, but you wouldn't bag it like...
You wouldn't.
Not right away.
Yeah.
But the fact that he thought of these details is fucked up.
And the one that is going trending is the shipping containers.
Oh,
This
yeah,
is the
I bagged
craziest
that
one.
too. Yeah,
oh, yeah,
yeah.
you did? The how, like, it's a cute... Obviously, there's accusations of man's trafficking. Okay, another one was when Kendrick started hitting this dance.
Oh, I seen that.
Do you know where that's from?
He's going...
Yeah. That's crazy.
Crazy.
And
That's deep it that he thought of this. That's
and the
deep.
line that it was accompanied by it, make sure you hide your little sister from it. Because in the TikTok that he did this in, he was with a young fan.
She stayed in her ex-husband's home for 13 years, working like a cow, working like a horse. And when they divorced, she didn't even take a needle or thread. She only took a few pieces of her own clothing and she left. And even like that, they still wouldn't give her a chance to live. The hospital quoted them a total of 1 million Chinese yuan, or a little over 140,000 US dollars. The family had nothing. They had no choice but to ask Lamu's 800,000 followers for help. The dad wrote a letter to her followers and to netizens, and he wrote, "On the evening of September 14th, my daughter was burned by her ex-husband while live streaming on Dying at home. It caused extensive burns all over her body, and now she is dying in the hospital. The State People's Hospital recommended a transfer, and the cost of treatment exceeded $1 million. Do you believe in miracles? Because within 7 hours, they exceeded the donations. It felt like it was going to be okay. What's crazy is that even in that moment, after they exceeded the goal, we don't know how much more the bills are going to be, but people kept donating, and the family actually came out and said, it's okay, we passed our goal. You guys don't have to donate your hard-earned money anymore. It just felt like the universe was listening, you know? And at this point, she was getting better. She was in stable condition, and people were being so kind, and it was like the hope in the world was being restored. And at one moment, Lamu, her eyelid actually fluttered for a second. But the universe has her cruel days. And on September 24th, after all of these hopeful signs and after all of these people thinking that, okay, as long as we come together now, we can make miracles happen. At the end of September, Lamu passed away. She was 30 years old, and it was the last day of September at 11:16 p.m. when her heart stopped, and she was dead.
Think you have moral integrity? I promise you this film makes you question everything. I'm Chuck. I'd love to be your movie guy. Hit the like button, give me a follow, and this is the absolute flawless masterpiece psychological horror thriller, Red Rooms. And I'm not using the word masterpiece lightly, and I don't pay attention to critics, but this film, Red Rooms, is getting praise everywhere. Red Rooms is a film that everybody's been waiting for. This is our Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Gone Girl 7. This is a psychological masterclass of a film, and it easily goes into my top 5 of this year. I'm not going to tell you much, but Red Rooms is about this man, an alleged serial killer named Ludovic Chevalier, and the high-profile case of a murdered 13-year-old girl. This is Kellyanne, a model who is absolutely obsessed with this high-profile case, and she is played by Juliette Garieppe, and this is an absolute masterclass, Oscar-worthy performance that's an absolute home run. She becomes so obsessed with this case that she literally lives and breathes it, sleeps outside of the courtroom so she can make sure that she gets a seat for the next day for the trial. And I'm not going to give you any more because the brilliance of Red Rooms is in the screenplay and the script. This film is going to put you in a conundrum of a moral dilemma. This film is designed to keep you on the edge of your seat and make you question everything, especially the things that they do not show you. And that is why it is so brilliant. Red Rooms absolutely blew me away. Cannot wait for everybody to see Red Rooms. Red Rooms is premiering this Friday, September 6th in select theaters and definitely in New York. The release date past that has not been announced yet. If you have ever listened to me and if you trust me, please trust me, Red Rooms is going to be on many top 10 lists at the end of the year because it's absolutely phenomenal. I'm Chuck. I'd love to be your movie guy. Hit the like button. Give me a follow.
People that like this shit
So
is,
it can't
I don't
be.
think it's fake.
Yeah, it's
I
not
deadass
fake.
don't think it's
Yeah,
fake.
yeah.
But what's crazy?
Yo, what happened?
What's crazy? So, check this out.
Yeah.
Let me just play it for you.
This is a Trump conspiracy?
Trump for Donald Trump.
Okay, let me see.
The shooting. So Donald Trump, the shooting happened at 6:11 p.m. Right?
Yeah.
Now check this out.
Let me see.
Ephesians 6:11 in the Bible. You know what it is?
No.
The armor of God. Finally be strong in the Lord and his almighty power. Put on the full armor. Yo, it's literally a whole scripture verse, a Bible verse about protection from God and wearing armor so that you will be protected. He was shot at 6:11, fam.
See, I no, that relates to the theory because okay, say the descendants from the demon. Who
What's
was
the other
protecting
side?
him?
What's the other
The
side?
other side.
Oh shit!
But politics aside though, the picture is hard. Yeah, this picture is hard.
Yo, we're Canadian, by the way. Just to put that out there, we're Canadian.
Yeah,
we don't
we're
really care
Canadian.
about this
Yeah,
stuff.
we don't care about it, but the picture's so fucking tough. Like, yo, fam, I could already tell, like, in a few years, that's gonna be the cover for the history books.
Yeah.
Like, we saw history right there.
No,
and
literally,
there.
that's probably gonna be a painting eventually.
Yeah, that's
crazy.
He's already putting out shoes called with the fight on like a Converse, and
Yeah,
it's like
that's
the USA flag.
crazy.
Bam.
So there's a theory too. They're pretty much saying like if he did get shot there would probably be a civil war.
When we were in LA, did you ever see a restaurant called the Yellow Deli?
Yeah, I did. I think so.
You know that restaurant is run by a cult, and the cult is run by 12 tribes, and it's the only restaurant in America where all the employees are unpaid.
In California, right?
No, anywhere in the States. There's bunch.
Oh shit! So this is like a franchise.
Yeah, it's a franchise.
Damn.
So the restaurant is used to fund the cult and like recruit new people. So after you're done eating, a person went in there and they were given a pamphlet.
No.
Right after. It says the 12 tribes. They read it. Would you like to join? It's free. We all have part ownership in this deli.
What the fuck? Are they selling a franchise or are they selling?
No. If you put it in that perspective, they're kind of selling their soul too because it's unpaid work.
Oh.
The only restaurant in America that's unpaid.
So none of the workers are paid?
Because they kind of own it.
Yo, that's wild.
And they're so smart. They put all their franchise locations close to colleges and they're open 24/7. So when college kids are hungry, they go into the deli. Oh, you want to join this?
And those are the ones that are most like on edge or like lost.
This movie is always controversial in the horror sphere, but if you've never seen Midsommar and you want to know what it's about, I'm about to do spoilers. Get ready. The movie opens up introducing us to our main character of Danny talking to her boyfriend Christian on the phone. She's really nervous that her sister is having another mental health episode and that she's about to do something drastic. Danny's sister and her parents are not answering the phone. She's very worried, but Christian keeps downplaying her worries and says, no, you are just enabling your sister. She's just reaching out for attention. She does this every time. You need to stop. Danny hangs up the phone and we see that Christian is out to dinner with his friends Josh, Mark, and Pele. And all three of his friends are telling him he needs to just dump Danny already, that she emotionally leeches off of him. She's so overbearing and sad all the time, and that he just needs to cut it off. Danny calls Christian back and his friends are pissed until they realize Danny is sobbing into the phone saying that her sister and her parents are all dead. Turns out Danny had every right to be worried because Danny's sister committed an act of murder-suicide. She turned on the car inside their closed-in garage, took a hose, connected it to the exhaust, and shoved the tube into her mouth so that way she would pass away, and then fled the gas all throughout the house so the parents would die in their sleep. The next few weeks are really, really rough for Danny, but she's trying to get out there and she goes to a party with Christian and his friends. And that's how Danny finds out in the middle of a conversation that apparently Christian is leaving to go out of the country to go to Sweden for like 1 to 2 months, and he's leaving in like 3 weeks, and she had no idea this was happening. When they go back to Danny's apartment and they're alone, Danny brings it up like, hey, I'm not mad, but it is kind of weird that you never mentioned to me you were leaving the country for like 2 months. Is everything okay? Christian immediately flips this back on Danny, gets super mad at her, gets her to the point where she apologizes to him for this. And then Christian lies and says, you know what, it was actually going to be a surprise for you, but you ruined it. You were going to be coming with us. This is not true. And we see this in the following scene. The point of this section is Christian is a gaslighter. He lies all the time. He will flip-flop and play with Danny's emotions at any chance he gets. This is not a healthy relationship for them. We find out the reason why they're all going to Sweden is because Josh is actually studying Pele's family. Pele's family is from a really particular group in Sweden that's really closed off, and they have a lot of secret cultural practices, and they do this really big festival once every so many years, and they've never had outsiders come to see. So they're inviting Josh and his friends so that way Josh can write his thesis based on the group. Pele and Danny have a heart-to-heart where Pele says, I'm really sorry about what happened to your family. I actually lost my parents in a tragic way as well. And then we cut to going to Sweden. Once they land, they have to go on like a 6-hour drive to get closer to the compound, and it's revealed in the car that Josh has a book called The Secret Nazi Language of the Harga, which that's the name of Pele's family's group. Pele is really ticked off that Josh has this book and says that this is their old ways. They do not believe these types of things anymore, and he just doesn't like that that book is even in the car. Foreshadowing, anyone? When we get to Pele's community, we actually find out that one of Pele's other relatives was doing outreach as well. He actually brought back 2 friends with him to come visit his family that have never been here before either. Their names are Connie and Simon. Everyone in the community welcomes them with open arms. They're very, very kind, welcoming, giving them treats, etc. Pele tells Danny happy birthday and gives her a gift. He actually hand drew a portrait of her. Danny is very, very touched by this, and Pele comments that Christian didn't even remember Danny's birthday. At this moment, this redhead runs by dancing and flirtatiously kicks Christian and gives him a smile. He immediately gets his attention drawn to her and goes to follow her around. I do want to put an important pin here that it's worth noting. In the director's cut of the movie, they make it seem that Christian pursues this girl a lot more actively and that he already knows that she's 14 or 15 years old. But in the theatrical version, she pursues him. He doesn't explicitly know her age. He doesn't really go after her all that much. It's different depending on the version of the movie. Anyway, back to the story. They have a welcoming ceremony to kick off the festival, but they're told the real festivities will begin tomorrow. But the next morning, this festival is actually the two eldest members of the community jumping off of a giant cliff in front of everyone, unaliving themselves, and one of them actually survives the fall, and he's twitching all over the ground, and one of the cult members has to take a giant hammer and smash his head in until he stops moving, and the entire group is horrified. Connie and Simon are freaking out. They're screaming that they want to leave. They're saying this is so effing messed up. And Danny and her group are just completely distraught by what they've seen. But one of the elders of the community says, no. This is like a very sacred thing for us. This is a very happy event. You see, in our culture, whenever someone gets to the age of 72, that's when their life cycle ends. We see it as an ongoing circular thing. This is a happy moment for them to finally unalive themselves and they will be reborn. That's their belief, and they're saying, no, this is just our culture. Like, you just need to accept this. Danny is like, please, Christian, can we please leave? And Christian just completely dismisses her and is like, no, this is actually really cool. And you know what? Like, we just need to respect what they're doing. And I've actually just decided that I'm writing my thesis about this place too. Josh is pissed to find this out because he was the one doing his thesis on this, and Christian is just piggybacking off of him and is taking all the credit, all the work, as Christian does with everything. Mark is just along for the ride, and he's just trying to bang a chick while he's here. That's basically his only goal, that and to vape whenever he can. But then we see Connie talking to one of the cult members, and she's saying that she's packing up, she wants to leave. Where's Simon? And that's when the cult member says, actually, Simon left without you like half an hour ago. And Connie's like, what the hell? My boyfriend would not leave without me. What are you talking about? And the cult member is like, oh no, you see, like, we only had a short window to bring you back to the train station. We only had one extra spot in the buggy. So we just took Simon without asking you, and then they're going to come back and get you now. So now I can take you to go to the train station. Connie's like, that's really weird and that makes no sense, but whatever. And she follows him. Danny overhears this entire conversation. But when Danny tries to tell Christian that, hey, isn't it weird that Simon left without Connie? Christian's just like, whatever, I guess, and doesn't care. This is when Josh meets with one of the elders, and they're going over the sacred text of the cult, and he's like, hey, where do you get your sacred doctrine from? And the elderly member is like, yeah, so we actually purposefully inbreed children to be our oracles. And so these children who have been inbred for generations, they paint and they color, and then the elders look at these drawings, and they interpret these drawings into their sacred text and doctrine. And Josh is like, interesting. Can I take pictures of these books? And the elderly member is like, no, absolutely not, and gets super pissed off about it. That's when Mark does something really stupid and he pees on their ancestral tree on accident. It's just a dead tree to the side of the group, and he just pees on it thinking nothing of it. They freak out at him. Tensions are high at this point. We also see that the redheaded girl is trying to put a love spell on Christian. She carves a rune, puts it under his bed, puts her pubic hairs into his pie, and then takes her period blood and puts it in his drink. I'm not exaggerating. We see that night that Josh is sneaking into their little chapel so he can go take pictures of the sacred text, and someone bludgeons him over the head. And as he lies on the ground, twitching, about to pass away, he sees someone who looks like Mark. But that's when he realizes Mark is dead, and this is someone who was wearing Mark's skin as a suit. The next day, Danny's like, hey, isn't it really weird that Connie and Simon and Mark and Josh are all missing? And Christian's like, whatever, I guess it's kind of weird. Christian then goes to have a conversation with one of the elders of the cult, and they have a private conversation about how their mating practices work. And the cult member actually says, you have been pre-selected to mate with Maya, the red-headed girl. Christian's like, I don't know, I came here with Danny, why are you trying to get her to do that? And they're like, well, we need this so we don't have inbreeding all the time, so like, that's why we're trying to do this. And they say, Danny will not know about this. The conversation ends there, we don't see the rest of it, but it's implied that Christian does not want to do this. We then see that Danny is competing in the May Queen dance competition, where all of the girls dance around a maypole, and the last person standing gets crowned May Queen of the entire festival. And of course, Danny wins. Christian makes it back from his awkward conversation to come see what's going on, and he actually sees Danny win, and Pele gives Danny a kiss, says, congratulations, you are May Queen. And this is where things start to really take a turn for Christian. One thing that I should mention is Danny and Christian have both been drugged at this point, but it seems like Christian has been drugged way more than Danny. Christian is really freaking out right now. And they pull Christian alone as he's been drugged and they make him have sex with the redheaded girl. The entire scene is completely bizarre. All of these women are standing around them watching. They are also nude and they are mimicking the girl's moans the entire time and they're just making all the same noises. It's insane. Danny ends up hearing all of these noises outside the building and goes to investigate, and she sees what's going on. And Danny does not know that Christian has been drugged. She does not know that Christian is being assaulted. From Danny's perspective, she thinks that Christian is cheating on her, and she is devastated. Danny completely breaks down. All of the other women in the cult are comforting her. They're yelling with her. They're crying with her. And this is Danny's final breaking point, right? Because she has been gaslit this entire time. She's been emotionally neglected, and now she thinks that he is cheating on her, even though we know that that's not what's happening. That's what she thinks. This is her last moment with him. She's then given the choice as May Queen for the last sacrifice of the entire festival. She can choose to unalive Christian or a random cult member, and she chooses Christian. Christian is stuffed into a bear carcass. He's also been paralyzed, so he can't explain to Danny what actually happened. She can't hear him. All the other sacrifices are put into this little yellow temple, and then they are all burned. We see at first that Danny is completely distraught, but then her face changes into a smile. And if you read the end of the script, it says that Danny has finally given herself over to the insane, and now she is a part of this cult forever.
First, he had a small role in the movie The Exorcist. Then, he became a killer. Hello, true crimer-ers. This is the case of Addison Verrill. Viewer discretion is advised. Addison Verrill was born on August 11th, 1941, and he was born in Connecticut. By the time this case occurs, he's 36 years old and he's living in New York, and he is actually a reporter for Variety. And this is in Manhattan. Addison was also a gay man at a time when, being out was not exactly the safest thing to do. But at the same time, the gay community was still very, strong. But typically when crimes at that time were committed against gay people, it was like nobody seemed to care. And what's unfortunate about this case is I think because of that, there really isn't a whole lot of information out there about Addison or who he was as a person. He was really kind of just reduced down to a victim. Pictured here is a man named Paul Bateson. If you have seen the original Exorcist movie, this is a scene from that movie depicting an angiogram. And the hospital staff that's actually featured in the movie are actual hospital people. These are the actual trained, professionals who do this thing normally. And this is Bateson pictured with the lead actress of the film, Linda Blair. Well, a few years after the film was released, he was fired from his hospital job. He became an alcoholic, and that affected him keeping work. Paul would then get jobs working as like a cashier at a porn theater. He did work cleaning apartments. Paul would also label himself as not exclusively gay, but he was into men, and he frequented gay bars. It was one of these gay bars where he met Addison Verrill. That was on September 14th, 1977. Paul and Addison would go back to Addison's apartment here in this building. He owned a studio apartment there. And I believe it was the next day, Addison was found brutally murdered inside his apartment. He had been beaten and stabbed to death. His head had been crushed with a skillet, and he had a knife piercing his heart. Then a writer here at the Village Voice would write an article on this case. It was written by a man named Arthur Bell. Well, after the story was published, Arthur Bell gets a personal phone call from someone stating that how he liked Arthur Bell's writing, he liked his article, but Arthur Bell described the murder of Addison Verrill as being done by a psychopath. Well, the person that called him said, well, I was the one who killed him, but I'm not a psychopath. But the caller then goes on to say, hey, I met Addison at the Badlands bar. Then the two of them had gone to a BDSM club, then eventually back to his apartment. And he gave details about the murder that nobody else really should have known about. So Arthur Bell goes to police with this information. And around that same time, someone else calls police and says, hey, I know who killed Addison Verrill because the person who did it confessed to me. He said that person was Paul Bateson. This individual would recount to police the confession he gave him, and it pretty much lined up exactly with the confession that Arthur Bell got. So Paul Bateson was arrested and charged with the murder. He would later try to say that he was drunk when he made that confession, and that it couldn't be taken seriously. But you had two different people giving the exact same story, and so it was true. He killed Addison Verrill. One of the issues surrounding cases like this is that people didn't really want to investigate the murders of gay people. People just couldn't be bothered to care about them. And if this reporter hadn't gotten this confession, who knows if this ever would have been solved. If that friend hadn't come forward to state, this person confessed to it, would this case have ever been solved? Because again, this was during a time when gay men, or there's hate crimes committed against gay men, there's murders committed against them, and more often than not, they weren't investigated and they were never solved. Thankfully, this one did. Now, Paul Bateson, whose character would be featured on the second season of the show Mindhunter on Netflix, he would end up getting convicted of the murder and sentenced to somewhere around 20 years in prison. The director of The Exorcist, William Friedkin, would actually visit him in jail. And Paul Bateson said he was a serial killer, and he confessed to like 5 or 6 more murders. Said he dismembered men and put them in trash bags. And these were men that no one cared about because, they're gay men. There was some attempts to correlate these killings to an unsolved string of murders called the Bag Murders. However, they were never able to link Paul Bateson to any of those murders or any other one. There has never been any physical evidence to suggest he killed anyone else other than Addison Verrill. He was released in 2003 when he looked like this, but really after that, no one really knows exactly what happened to him. He kind of just fell out of the limelight, thankfully. He may be a serial killer, or he may not be. But it turns out the movie The Exorcist had more than one demon.
Go away. Don't come any closer.
Oh my God!
I'll see you.
You ain't Johnny. You're a goddamn Skinwalker.
One of the most gruesome cases of sadistic torture we've ever covered, the case of Junko Furuta. Japan, 1988. 17-year-old Junko is rubbing her bruised knee. She's laying kind of awkwardly in a ditch on the side of the road. Her bike is practically on top of her at this point. It's 8:30 p.m. It's not the most optimal time to get injured alone. Junko looks up. She's frustrated. She was riding her bike home from her part-time job when this random 15-year-old boy comes up to her out of nowhere, completely unprovoked, and kicks the side of her bike. She and her bike go flying off the road into this ditch, and now she's rubbing her slightly bloody knees. She's dusting the dirt off her legs when this figure walks up to her. Another boy, maybe a little older, perhaps 18. He offers to help her up. That guy is famous around here, the one that kicked you. He's a pervert. He once threatened me with a knife, Come on, let's get you up. I can escort you home if you'd like. I'm sure he's still somewhere around here. It's a split-second decision. Do you risk being alone and vulnerable to the bike-kicking pervert to come back and get you? Or do you take the helping hand, hoping it's someone safer? The possibility that the two of them planned for this to happen probably does not cross your mind.
Oh, it was pre-planned?
Pre-planned. They're friends. As Junko and the helping hand are walking towards her house, they pass by one of those abandoned warehouses, and suddenly this guy's attitude completely switches. You know how a Yakuza member, right? It's like the mafia, but in Japan. This is our whole thing. We kill you by faking an accident, we hit you with a car, but I can forgive you if you offer yourself to me. He drags Junko into the abandoned warehouse and essays her. But when he's done, he is sitting next to her, she's very panicked, and he tries to convince her, actually, there's more. The Yakuza still wants to kill you, but because you look kind of like my girlfriend, I feel a little bit of sympathy for you. I want to let you live. I can talk to my superiors and ask them not to kill you, but you have to stay with me for maybe the weekend. He leaves to call 2 of his friends and he tells them, I've captured a woman. Do you guys want to eat together? That night, him and his 3 friends would take turns gang essaying her, and they would invite more friends over, and soon the torture would begin. They would make fun of her. It was estimated that Junko was essayed by at least 100 different men during her 44 days in captivity. The sexual torture would only escalate in the next few weeks. It's almost like her captors and the other friends who would be invited over were playing this game of who can be more sick, who can be more twisted. Within a few weeks, they start essaying Junko with other objects. They initially start with random objects that they could find, get their hands on, but eventually they start intentionally looking for objects that would cause the most damage. They begin to torture Junko by inserting sharp scissors, metal rods, metal skewers that you use to grill meat on, glass beverage bottles into her private parts to essay her. At one point, they placed a hot light bulb into her private region and roughly moved it around until it shattered inside of her. Junko would be essayed so regularly and so brutally that her internal organs were, quote, mangled by the end of the 44 days.
कंटिन्यूसली वहां पे कट 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 होते रहे। ये रुक गए उस टाइम पे कि गेट मत खोलियो, ये भैया नहीं पक्का कोई लुटेरा है, कुछ ना कुछ है, गेट मत खोलियो। इन्होंने फ्लैश मार के देखा, जो फोन में था कोई नहीं दिख रहा था, इन्हें गुप अंधेरा था, ये चुपचाप वहां बैठ गए और वो बंदा ऑलरेडी पैनिक था, वो बंदा बेहोश हो गया। ये बंदा बैठा हुआ था, ऑक्सीजन बहुत कम हो रही थी, इसने खूब हाथ पैर मारने की कोशिश की, आगे जाके शीशा साफ कराना, आगे दिख रहा था ना पीछे दिख रहा था। इसे बस इतना याद है कि भाई कहीं ना कहीं मेरा दम घुट गया मैंने आंख बंद करी और शायद ये नींद लग गई इसको। सुबह अचानक से इसकी जब आंख खुली तो देखा कि सवेरा हो गया, सामने पीसीआर वगैरह खड़ी थी, पुलिस वाले आ रखे थे, जैसे या तो यहाँ पे बहुत बड़ा क्राइम सीन हो रखा है या फिर गांव वालों ने बता दिया। 2-3 गांव वाले खड़े थे जो ढाबे वाबे वाले थे, बनियान में कुछ लड़के थे, कुछ अंकल शर्ट में थे चप्पल पहन के, सामने पीसीआर खड़ी थी और जितने भी पुलिस वाले थे वो इनको बुला के ले जा रहे थे कि चलो हमारे साथ, इन दोनों को, जिसको अस्थमा आ रहा था और जो बताने वाला है। तो जब इसको उतारा तो इन दोनों को बोला कि आपको पीछे मुड़ के नहीं देखना, आप सीधा पीसीआर में बैठो और सीधा यहाँ से आपको थाने लेके जाएंगे। इन्होंने बहुत पूछने की कोशिश की कि कल रात कहाँ थे, हमें यहाँ पर किसी ने भी नहीं बचाया, हम कल रात से हैं। भाई दोनों बंदों ने मतलब अपना अपना बताया कि इन दोनों ने क्या देखा। जिसको अस्थमा अटैक आता था उसके दिमाग में ये चल रहा था पीछे क्यों नहीं देखने दे रहे, और जिस बंदे ने बताया उसने बताया कि अक्षय भाई वहां पर ना एक कागज, एक पेपर हमारे आगे वाले टायर के नीचे पड़ा हुआ था, जैसे किसी ने दबा रखा है उसको। तो जो बताने वाला था उसने उस कागज को उठाया पुलिस वालों की नजरों से बचते हुए कि पुलिस वालों ने अभी तक इसे देखा नहीं है, और जिसको अस्थमा अटैक आता था उसने पीछे मुड़ के देखा। तो अस्थमा अटैक वाले ने जब पीछे मुड़ के, जो पेड़ था, जो सबसे पहले मयंक भैया गाड़ी से उतरे थे, उनकी गर्दन बंधी हुई थी एक रस्सी से और वो गाड़ी से टक 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 इस तरीके से बज रही थी, सिर्फ गर्दन। आगे गए पीसीआर के पास, उस बंदे ने कागज पर देखा जहां पे लिखा हुआ था आज तुम लोग बच गए, तुमसे दोबारा मुलाकात होगी। कहीं ना कहीं ये कुछ टोटका इनकी गाड़ी के नीचे आ गया था, जिसकी वजह से ये उसी टाइम उस लूप में फंस गए थे। और ये मान लो कि ये अभी भी कंटिन्यू है कि जैसे जिसने बताया है ना, वो बोलते हैं कि अक्षय भैया वहां से हम आगे थाने में सारी स्टेटमेंट ले ली और ये दिखाया कि लूट की कुछ हुआ था, लूट का कुछ हुआ था। वो जो दूसरा बंदा था ब्रेकअप वाला, वो आज तक नहीं मिला। 2000 जो पीछे गया था, 2018 से 2024 आ गया। इस बंदे ने मेरे को 1-2 साल तक तो फॉलोअप किया कि अक्षय भैया मेरे साथ ऐसा हो रहा है, मेरे साथ ऐसा हो रहा है। एट द एंड 2020 में ये भी गायब हो गया।
जो बंदा आपको बता रहा था
वो भी गायब हो गया।
तो पूरी मिस्ट्री खुली नहीं, किसने करा, क्या करा,
कुछ नहीं पता।
बस ये कि गाड़ी कहीं चढ़ गई थी,
टोटके पे
चढ़ गई थी, जिसकी वजह से उनके ऊपर वो आ गया, हावी हो गया और
पूरा का पूरा।
और जो उसको गर्दन दिखी है वो सही में लटकी हुई,
वो मयंक की थी।
तो वो न्यूज में आया प्रॉपर कि बंदा मर गया।
भाई आया भी होगा तो मेरे को कोई आइडिया नहीं है, क्योंकि ऐसी चीजों को ना बहुत इजीली दबा दिया जाता है जिनका कोई रीजन नहीं मिलता। आज तो वैसे भी आप न्यूज में देखोगे, न्यूज आती कहाँ है, सिर्फ सोशल मीडिया के बारे में बताते हैं, बिग बॉस में क्या चल रहा है और ये क्या चल रहा है।
हाँ सही बात है भाई।
लेकिन मेरे को जो सबसे अजीब लगा वो यही लगा भाई, ये पहली ऐसी थी जिसमें मिस्ट्री खुली नहीं, वरना हमेशा कोई ना कोई मिस्ट्री खुल जाती कि करने वाला कौन था। और एट द एंड जिस बंदे ने मेरा फॉलोअप लिया वो भी आखिरी में आके गायब हो गया।
Hi loves, kung may babaeng kakatok sa pinto nyo habang bumabagyo, pagbubuksan mo ba? Papapasukin mo ba at tutulungan? Dito sa bagong horror/psychological thriller na You'll Never Find Me, pinapasok ni Patrick yung babae. Tama ba o mali yung naging desisyon niya? Ang nangyari kasi dito, si Patrick isa siyang recluse that enjoys being alone with himself. In the movie, we will find him staying in a trailer park sa sarili niyang RV. Walang context kung bakit nandun siya, he's just there. I'm presuming isa lang yung RV sa trailer park na yon, kaya doon nanghingi ng tulong yung babae. At first, hindi sana siya papapasukin ni Patrick, pero paulit-ulit siya na humihingi ng tulong kaya naawa na rin siya. Eventually, pinapasok siya ni Patrick and the psychological war between the two of them started. I'm calling it a psychological war between the two of them because you can't seem to point out kung sino yung potential victim o potential suspect. Yung visitor na girl, may mga sinasabi siya na hindi nagtutugma. But at the same time, there are objects in Patrick's trailer na very sketchy rin. Para bang nakikiramdaman silang dalawa kung sino yung unang pipitik. It's so eerie sa trailer. You'll be filled with questions talaga kung bakit nandun si Patrick in the first place, bakit nandun yung babae, saan siya nanggaling, at ano yung mga circumstances that brought them to meet each other. Certainly, itong You'll Never Find Me, this is the type of horror/psychological thriller na kailangang tutukan mo talaga. It's in the unease and tension between the two characters that makes you want to crave for what's next. Yung mapapaisip ka kung sino nga ba yung protagonist at yung villain. Or maybe they're just two messed up souls who found each other. Pwedeng katapat nila ang isa't isa. I know as much as we love horror films na may mga jump scares, yung mga parang tatanggalin yung kaluluwa natin sa katawan natin sa twist, I feel like quiet horror movies are also equally enjoyable. I feel like mas terrifying pa nga yung mga tipo nito because it's most likely that you'll find yourself in this type of situation in the future. Diyos ko, wag naman sana. I feel like this can also be a lesson na wag masyadong magtiwala. Na it's always better to err on the side of caution. Needless to say, sobrang na-intriga ko sa You'll Never Find Me. It brings me knock-knock vibes na may undertones ng Barbarian. If I'm not mistaken, this is available on Apple TV if you want to watch it.
Yeah, for a guide.
No, sir. No, sir.
No, give?
No.
Your name?
Shahid Ali.
Huh?
Shahid Ali.
Shahid Ali. Pleased to meet you, Shahid Ali. My name is Dale. And you? Filan. My name is Dale. How are you? Oh, you have a jacket. You're not hot?
Yeah.
Hot?
Yeah.
Hot?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Beautiful.
Yes, it's beautiful, but this weather very hot.
Very children. Children.
Children, yes.
Yeah.
They show me about everything, like how to get up. I have to climb the wall.
Okay.
Yeah.
वो जुड़वा है ना हम सबको दिए थे 500 रुपया and sir money back 500 rupees
for what? No, okay, I don't give.
and
Okay.
children 100 rupees but okay
Okay.
500 nahi
Okay. I don't give. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay sir on
No, finish. I just said. Yeah, I just sit here. Okay. Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
you in the picture
Need picture? You have camera? Okay, take.
फोटो खिंचवा रहे
Take.
तो तुम ये भी
Okay.
तुम दिलवा दी नीचे आके यहाँ मत मांगना हमारे पास हम तो लेंगे तो जुड़वा से दिलवा दे 100 rupees money back 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10
No, five. Five boys. 5 boys.
10 rupees
No,
100 rupees
you don't help me. These boys help me.
No.
No need.
मैं बैंड कराऊं पीछे आओ दिलवा रहा हूं कुछ यार तू दिलवा रहा तो पकड़ के लाए ओए ना मारे 500 रुपए तो छोड़ यार नीचे
What this man did
can't be forgiven. In the 1920s, a man named Pete Za ran an escape house business alongside a traveling carnival. But the strange part about it all was that Pete didn't work for the carnival at all. He just followed them across the country and would set up his escape room nearby, and it looked like he was a part of it. The inside of Pete's escape house was custom made by him and was meant to be virtually impossible to escape with trapdoors and secret rooms. Over the years, hundreds of people went missing across the country, and Pete was not being suspected at all. Until an anonymous tip came in about there being a strange pattern in disappearances wherever the traveling carnival was being held. Over the following weeks, authorities followed the carnival and did surveillance. Everything seemed normal until they noticed Pete's suspicious setup off to the side. They would then confront Pete asking if they could look inside, and he denied them access. He was then asked to show his permit, and he said, "It's in my car," and went to go get it. But as soon as he got in, he took off from the police and successfully escaped. Months would go by without him being seen, and it was also discovered he was responsible for over 1,000 disappearances and was labeled as a very dangerous person to the public. But in late 1928, he was caught living off the grid in South Dakota in a cabin. He was sentenced and then later succumbed to the chair while in prison in 1932. Onion rings.
Yes, the movie where a man is surgically turned into a human walrus hybrid against his will is based on a true story. Now, in the film, Wallace gets his legs amputated, he gets his arms sewn to the sides of his torso, he gets his teeth knocked out, his tongue ripped out, and then his femurs are shaved down into points and inserted into his mouth to be tusks. He also obviously gets sewn into the walrus suit. But in real life, things played out a little differently. You see, Kevin Smith was inspired to write the story because he saw an ad, and in this ad, it was an elderly gentleman saying, "Hey, I need a roommate, you can come stay with me for free. All you have to do is dress up in a walrus costume and entertain me." And this advertisement that Kevin Smith saw ended up just being a prank. Like, there was no real gentleman who wanted this to happen. But it basically inspired Kevin Smith to be like, but what if? Like, what if someone actually did want to do that? And what would that type of guy actually be like? What would his intentions be? Which, in the film, the guy's motivations are a walrus saved him one day while he was lost at sea, and he is tormented all these years later because he was forced to consume the walrus in order to survive. He was starving. Always remember, when a movie says based on true events or based on a true story, it is always very loose with that interpretation.
I'm about to show you a video that was sent to me by one of you guys. This account is called El Cucuy. I don't think that this account originally took this video, but all they post is paranormal scary videos, so if you would like that, go check them out. But let me show you the video that scared the fuck out of me this week.
Oh shit. Fuck you. Fuck yeah. Nothing here. Nothing fuck here. Oh my god, I'm so... Oh my god, look, legit goosebumps. Oh my god. What the fuck is that?
I wouldn't know what to do in that situation. I have an immense amount of respect for parents because I feel like when you have kids, just something in you is like willing to do anything for them. Like in such a vulnerable moment too, he's laying there with his kids, giving them a kiss, and then something's just standing there watching. What would you do in that situation?
There was a crazy story that I heard about the ring camp. So there was a little girl, and she heard something talking to her, right?
I'm your best friend. I'm Santa Claus.
When she went out and she ran because she was scared, she called her mom. They went in, didn't hear nothing. So apparently there was a peeping Tom like outside, hearing and trying to talk to her.
Yeah.
But they didn't know that. What they could find is the mom went on the ring camera in the sister's room, and they heard this. I'll show you. It was crazy. Because something that's supposed to give you security could be hacked so easily, bro.
I'm your best friend.
Oh shit, he's talking through the camera. Oh, that's creepy as fuck.
Look.
But first off, why do you have a ring cam in the bedroom?
Because the sister is also like kind of small.
Oh, to monitor
Yeah,
her.
to monitor, yeah. So look, and he tells her,
that's wild.
Look, he says, you can mess up your room, you can break your TV, you can do whatever you want.
That's wild.
So apparently after he hacked onto the thing, he was around the area looking at that girl.
Okay, I wasn't aware that not everybody knew that there was a Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2. On my video about Peter Pan and Pinocchio, this was a common comment, so let's go and catch everybody up on the Poohniverse. So this is what we're looking at. We've got Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2. Then we've got Bambi the Reckoning, we've got Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare, we've got Pinocchio Unstrung, and then they all collab together in the Poohniverse Monsters Assemble. Now back when Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2 was in theaters, before the movie we got a sneak peek at Bambi the Reckoning. Check out this sneak peek, it looks pretty cool. Now we also just got the full trailer for Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare. It's on my page. I haven't seen any footage for Pinocchio Unstrung yet. But on top of all this, we also got confirmation that there will be a third Blood and Honey film, which is confirmed to include the Heffalumps and the Woozles, and Rabbit will be joining the fun as well. So yeah, there's a catch up on the Poohniverse. This won't be for everybody, but for me personally, I'm all in.
This case will make you terrified to go back to school. This is the haunting case of the back-to-school killer. On the 17th of October 2009, students in Fairfax, Virginia were really excited to go and see their favourite band in concert, Metallica. 20-year-old Morgan Harrington was one of them. Morgan and her friends all went to the concert together, but during one of the opening band's performances at around 8 p.m, she left to go to the toilet. When she failed to return, her friends got really worried. They managed to ring Morgan, who told them that she'd accidentally ended up outside of the venue and security wouldn't let her back in. She reassured her friends that she would probably just try and get a lift home, and the concert went on. After the show, it was clear that nobody knew where Morgan was or could get hold of her, so they reported her missing. Police started hunting for her, and then they made a terrifying discovery. Her mobile phone was found in a nearby car park and the battery had been removed. This was obviously a huge red flag. Witnesses reported seeing Morgan that evening by a nearby taxi rank looking quite drunk. The band Metallica even helped out and did a video appeal for help from the public. Another worrying discovery was made in November when people found Morgan's t-shirt in bushes near the campus. The case seemed to grind to a halt until January 2010 when a local farmer tragically found Morgan's body on some of his land. The police at this point were also testing the DNA on Morgan's t-shirt. This showed that the DNA from an unknown person on the t-shirt was a match to somebody who had attacked somebody in Fairfax in 2005. However, police still didn't know who that person was, and Morgan's case went cold. That was until another hideous crime. In the early hours of September the 13th, 2014, 18-year-old Hannah Graham was lost in Charlottesville. She was a sophomore at the University of Virginia. She texted her friend to try and get some help after getting lost after attending an off-campus party. Similar to Morgan's case, when Hannah failed to turn up to class, she was reported missing. Luckily, Hannah was captured by quite a lot of CCTV. Horrifyingly though, in one of the pieces of footage, you can clearly see a man start to follow her. He was a very tall man with either braids or dreadlocks. Women around the same area that evening also reported seeing this man acting inappropriately with women. Earlier in the evening, he'd been asked to leave a bar because of this, and then the women noticed that this same man had his arm around the girl that we now know is Hannah. These girls decided to follow the pair as they just had a gut feeling that something was wrong. They actually tried to intervene and tell the man to back off from the drunk student, but he was quite intimidating. He actually ended up taking Hannah to another bar and buying her drinks. Later, other witnesses said that they saw Hannah buy an orange car, apparently telling the driver that she was not going to get in the car. That was the last time she was seen alive. Police managed to identify the driver of the car and the man, obviously, who was following the student as 32-year-old Jesse Matthew Jr. Infuriatingly, over an 11-month period, he had actually been investigated for allegations of art at multiple universities. He was never prosecuted, and he was actually able to just simply leave those universities after each incident. Now, interestingly, Jesse actually drove a taxi. If you remember back to Morgan's case, she had disappeared while at a taxi rank. After being interviewed by police, Jesse frustratingly managed to get away. He sped out of the police station and escaped. He was plastered all over the news, and luckily a woman at a beach in Texas spotted him. She ended up calling police to report this, but they really didn't take her seriously at first, and she ended up having to call several times. After she literally had to beg them to show up, Jesse was eventually arrested. Police were able to link him to the attack in Fairfax in 2005 and also to Morgan's murder. A month later, Hannah's body was found just 5 miles from where Morgan was found. He was eventually sentenced to 3 life terms for the attack in 2005 and then given 4 life terms for the murders of Hannah and Morgan. In 2019, interestingly, he was actually diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, and I can't seem to find an update as to whether he's still alive. Please take this case as a warning to be extra vigilant and always stay with your friends on nights out. In an ideal world, we wouldn't have to do this, but obviously women are vulnerable, so please do keep a lookout for anyone looking vulnerable and walking on their own.
Tong Lu was the ghost in Lamu's life. We're gonna call him Tong to make it easier to follow. But Tong and Lamu, they met 12 years before all of this happened. I mean, at first, married life was bliss. Villagers said that they were inseparable, but then Lamu got pregnant. And we've talked about this before, but unfortunately, a lot of male abusers start their abuse on their female partner when they're pregnant. Her abuse was well hidden from everyone. She did not want to worry her parents or her sister. She wanted to make it work for the sake of her child. And whenever she was out and about and doing all these things, she always had this big smile on her face. Like they had no idea what was going on. So under the threat of her child and her parents' safety, she stayed in the relationship. So 5 more years, she continued to live like this type of torturous environment. In March 2020, Lamu finally filed for divorce. Tong got so angry. He screamed, yelled, punched, kicked, but no matter what he did, Lamu was determined. The next day, she filed a lawsuit against him and then went into hiding. Tong was out of his mind with anger. His wife just sued him for abuse and now she was hiding from him. How dare she? And at 8 p.m. on September 14th, a few months after their final divorce, Tong left the kids at home, got on his motorbike with an empty container. He filled it with gasoline, arrived at the final destination, parked his bike about a block or 2 away from Lamu's house, and he walked up to her house with 4 things: the gasoline, a lighter, a knife, and a plan. He blocked the front door before going in, went through the back door, and he drenched Lamu in gasoline. He lit her on fire and escaped through the woods back to his bike. She had spent 3 hours in a burning house with gasoline all over her, and she was still alive, but she would never wake up from her coma. In October of the next year, 2021, they pronounced Tong Lu guilty of intentional homicide. He was stripped of his constitutional right to life and handed the death sentence.
Evil Wives Rotting in Prison, Part 19. Betty Bisceglia met 21-year-old Daniel Broderick III in 1965 when she was 17. Dan pursued Betty, and eventually they became a couple. They married on April 12, 1969, and had 5 children, although one died soon after his birth. Betty cared for the family while Dan completed a medical degree and later a law degree. In October 1983, Betty suspected Dan was sleeping with his assistant, 21-year-old Linda Kolkata, but he denied it. In February 1985, Dan moved out. He later confessed to the affair and filed for divorce. The divorce was finalized in 1989, and Dan married Linda on April 22, 1989. Betty refused to move on. She vandalized his home, left threatening voicemails, and violated restraining orders. At 5:30 a.m. on November 5, 1989, she walked into Dan and Linda's home using a key she stole from her daughter. She shot and killed Linda first, and then she killed Dan. She left the scene but turned herself in later that day. At her first trial, she claimed to be a battered wife. A mistrial was declared because 2 jurors voted for manslaughter. She was convicted of 2 counts of second-degree murder at her second trial and was sentenced to 215 to life sentences. She has been eligible for parole 3 times, but she has been denied due to lack of remorse. Her next parole hearing will be in 2032, when she is 86.
A child actor's death, a burned-down stage, and another child actress going missing all resulted in a beloved children's show going off the air after 50 years. The problem is, after nearly 30 years of being off the air, no one seems to remember the show, or at least not in the same way. No digital archives of the show exist whatsoever, and no physical copies exist either. They can't be found. But now, the last remaining cast of child actors is all meeting up together after 30 years to talk about what happened during the last recording when the stage burned down. The cast members even managed to find the missing child actress who is now a grown adult. Even the last cast members who were on the show, now that they are adults, can't even agree on if the only adult character in the TV show was real or not. They don't remember if he was CGI, 2D, or if he was a real actor standing in front of him. This is the horror mystery novel Mr. Magic, and it surrounds the idea of these cast members coming together as adults trying to figure out all the horrific things that happened to them while they were children. It reminds me a lot of Stephen King's It, but without all of the Coke-inspired scenes. It deals a lot with the themes of nostalgia, kind of wiping away the horrors of your youth, and you're trying to peel back all of the layers to see what was really there underneath. A very fun read.
Hi loves, marami ang nagsasabi na Rosemary's Baby ang isa sa mga pinaka-nakakatakot na horror film na napanood nila. Kung hindi mo pa napapanood ang Rosemary's Baby, it's about a young couple who moved into a really luxurious apartment called the Bramford. Kinukumbinsi sila ng mga mayayamang kapitbahay nila na magkaroon na ng anak. And it turns out, yung mga mayayamang kapitbahay na to, may mga karumal-dumal na ritual pala na ginagawa involving Rosemary and her baby. If you know, you know. It turns out, second try na pala yung kay Rosemary. They really started with Terry's character na makikilala natin sa bagong horror movie na prequel ng Rosemary's Baby na Apartment 7A. Yes, that's Julia Garner, the same woman that we saw in Inventing Anna. Kung napanood nyo yung Rosemary's Baby, Terry is actually there. She was taken in by the Casavets, the same couple who preyed on Rosemary. Pakikita natin ang backstory ni Terry dito sa Apartment 7A. Si Terry pala, she's a dancer that wanted to make it big sa Broadway. But unfortunately, she had an injury. I'm presuming because of that injury, she was forced to stay with the Casavets. She stayed there and fortunately, she had a chance to relaunch herself. But then it was already too late because the satanic rituals of the Casavets was already working in her body. If you check the trailer, it's really creepy. Kaawa-awa talaga yung character ni Julia Garner. From the looks of it, yung lahat ng ginawa nila kay Rosemary, they already attempted it with Terry. If you come to think of it, it's really heartbreaking because Terry was there to fulfill her lifelong dream. But it turns out her life already ended when she entered Apartment 7A in Bramford. Rosemary's Baby was released in the 60s and it's considered as a horror cult classic. Some would even argue that it's a breakthrough in feminine horror. If you look at the trailer of Apartment 7A, you can see that there are feminist undertones in the way they presented Terry's character. She wasn't just a shell of a woman that we saw sa Rosemary's Baby. She was a woman filled with dreams and ambition. And it's really heartbreaking that she was victimized by satanic people. I really have high hopes for Apartment 7A as a horror movie, especially that Julia Garner is the lead actress. I'm also really looking forward kung paano nila imamount yung Bramford. As in, sobrang creepy talaga ng mga kapitbahay ni Terry dito. I really hope we get to watch this in Philippine cinemas or in streaming platforms available in our country.
A man gets surgically turned into a walrus in this movie, and it's based on a true story. We're about to do spoilers, get ready. The story begins with two friends, Wallace and Teddy, who have a successful podcast called The Nazi Party. Wallace is laughing at a video of a man who accidentally cuts off his own leg with a sword. Wallace keeps making a bunch of horrible jokes about how the man is disabled now. I'm sure this will not be ironic and come back to bite him whatsoever. Teddy and Wallace discuss how Wallace is about to go on a work trip to Canada to interview the man who accidentally cut off his own leg. You see, the reason why they call it the Nazi Party is because the whole gimmick of the podcast, one of them goes to interview weird or interesting people, that's their words, not mine, and then comes back and tells the other person about it, but he doesn't get to see it. That's why it's the Nazi Party. Wallace even explains this to Canadian Customs, and they are not amused by this at all. Then he discovers the man has actually unalived himself. There is a funeral taking place that day, and he is out of luck for his interview. He goes to a bar, calls his friend Teddy, makes a bunch of more ableist jokes towards this man, and says, could he really be so selfish? Like, why couldn't he have waited 2 more days before he unalived himself? He goes to take a leak in the bar bathroom and finds an interesting note on the wall from an elderly man saying that if you go to his estate and do a few chores for him, he will let you stay the night for free, and he wants to tell you all these interesting stories about his life. And Wallace figures, hey, why not? Let's go try it. Wallace stops at a convenience store, asks for directions, and then heads 2 hours north to go to the man's estate. His name is Howard, and he invites Wallace in for tea. But Wallace gets distracted, and he sees this weird-looking bone on the side of the wall, which he then picks up and asks what it is. Howard says, it's a walrus penis bone. Howard then tells the story of a time that a walrus saved his life when he was lost at sea, and that's why he views them so nobly. His ship crashed over open water, and he barely made it to a nearby island. He swam there, and once he was on the island, he was shivering. He was about to get frozen solid, basically, and that's when a walrus appeared and tucked him into his warmth and saved his life. He lovingly named this walrus Mr. Tusk. It's at this point that Wallace is starting to feel really shaky, and he says, what did you put in my drink? And then he faints on the floor. We then get a flashback of a scene with Wallace and his girlfriend, Allie. She's begging him not to go to Canada. She doesn't want him to make fun of this disabled man. She thinks it's cruel and incredibly cringe of him. To which Wallace basically says, nobody cared about the old me, I wasn't successful, I wasn't that funny, new me who exploits people is getting hundreds of thousands of dollars a year doing this. She basically says, you're losing me, flashback ends. Wallace wakes up and he's extremely groggy. He asks Howard what happened to him, and Howard says the most BS thing ever. He says that he was bitten by a spider, and that's why he fainted. It was like a very poisonous spider. He called a doctor over to help them. And the doctor, in order to save Wallace's life, had to take life-saving measures. And that's when Wallace looks down and realizes he is missing a leg. Wallace freaks out. He wants to know where his phone is. He wants to know why this happened. And that's when Howard tells him, oh, you see, your phone's been destroyed because the doctor accidentally stepped on it. It was broken into pieces. I threw it away. Wallace is freaking the hell out at this point, as anyone would, but he is left alone by Howard. He says he will come meet him again at supper time. He says there never really was a spider, was there? And he begins screaming for help. Howard then gets out of his wheelchair, walks across the room, and slaps Wallace in the face. Howard says he has been building a realistic walrus suit that he thinks Wallace will fit in after some body modifications. Howard says he wants to turn Wallace into a walrus because he wants to answer the age-old question, and I quote, is man truly a walrus at heart? Wallace gets a brief amount of time alone in a room where he actually manages to find his cell phone. He calls his girlfriend and his best friend and leaves them voicemails saying what's happening. But we, the audience, see why they're not answering the phones. They're having a private discussion about Wallace. The girlfriend is breaking down in tears, saying that Wallace has been cheating on her for so long now, and that she hates him, she wants out of this, she doesn't know what to do, she's reliant upon him, but that she really cares about Teddy and that Teddy makes her feel valued. We also see in a flashback that Wallace was bragging to Teddy the entire time that he was cheating on her. He would just go and cheat on her with any random person he could find every time he went out of town. When they wake up in the morning, they hear the voicemails, they're distraught, they immediately get into action, they get airplane tickets to go to Canada. On the way to the airport, they call the local police and they explain the situation. But when the police ask them, like, hey, do you have any recent pictures of Walrus? The girlfriend, without skipping a beat, says yes. Check NaziParty.com, and she doesn't say how it's spelled, so the police immediately hang up on her and they're on their own. We then get to see Howard sewing up Wallace's body. He is sewing the insides of Wallace's arms to his torso, and he has also removed his other leg at this point. He cuts out Wallace's tongue as well, and he takes his femurs and sculpts them into tusks to put in his mouth. They then cut to the final creation, Wallace the walrus. Wallace's disfigured body has been shoved into and sewn into a realistic flesh-lined walrus costume. Again, he has no tongue, he has no teeth, his arms are sewn to his sides, he has no legs, he can only flop around like a walrus. He screams, and it's supposed to be horrifying, but I laugh every time. It's like the funniest scream ever. Howard says a real walrus must swim and then pushes him into the water. Oh yeah, they're in like a walrus playpen like you would find at the aquarium. Wallace the walrus then is struggling really hard to swim, and he sees under the water the skeletal remains of a previous hybrid human walrus that Howard had created, and it terrifies him and it motivates him to get out of the water back onto land. Allie and Teddy get to Canada, and they're pointed in the direction of a private detective who has specifically been hunting for this man, trying to find the walrus serial killer guy. Oh, and by the way, this guy is Johnny Depp. Howard begins singing to his new walrus, which he keeps calling Mr. Tusk like the first walrus he had. Allie Allie, Teddy, and Johnny Depp go to retrace Wallace's steps, and they end up at the convenience store that he was at. Which, fun fact, the convenience store clerk that they're talking to is Lily Rose Depp. She points them to the direction of Howard's house. They're racing there. They'll be there in 2 hours. But then we see Howard, and he is putting himself in a walrus suit at this point. He tells Wallace that they are going to fight to the death, walrus to walrus. But he tells Wallace, obviously he doesn't look like this at this point, but he tells Wallace this will be a fair fight. He uses his tusk to repeatedly stab him over and over again. It's really crazy. And of course, this is right when Allie and Teddy walk into the room. They're devastated. They're crying. They're sobbing. And Wallace can't communicate. All he can do is grunt and scream and make walrus noises because he doesn't have a tongue anymore. Johnny Depp runs in and he's about to mercy kill Wallace. And Allie says, no, don't. We flash forward an entire year and we see that Wallace is living in a zoo. He has his own walrus enclosure, and Allie and Teddy go to visit him and bring him a treat, and it's a fish. They all cry, say, we love you, Wallace. You don't need to be ashamed of yourself. And then they leave. And Wallace is just sad and cries as a walrus, and that's the end of the movie.
My name is Ricky. I love horror movies. And here's a list of underrated horror movies that nobody talks about. First on this list we have Butterfly Kisses. Now, this is a found footage horror movie, and in my opinion, it's one of the best found footage horror movies ever made, but nobody seems to know about it. This movie centers around two student filmmakers, and they're making a film about an urban legend, one that everybody in their small town knows about. And they go in search of this thing, and this thing finds them. This movie is sometimes a bit clunky, but it has some really good scares. It's got some good acting in it. Thoroughly enjoyed this one. A Dark Song is a movie that I think I've spoken about on here before, but not a lot of people know about this film, and they should, because this film is so good. It's one of my favourite films of all time. It's about a woman who is suffering the loss of her only child, and as a result, she hires this guy and this house in the middle of nowhere to perform a spell so she can conjure up her guardian angel to ask for a wish. It's creepy, it's uncomfortable, it's well written, it's well acted, it's beautiful, it will make you cry and it will scare you. It's very, very good. If you're a fan of Hammer House, a horror movie, if you're a fan of old school gothic horror, then you will like this film. Because this film was produced by Hammer House of Horror. It is The Quiet Ones. The Quiet Ones is loosely based on a true story about a group of student paranormal investigators and volunteers trying to prove the existence of the paranormal. And this has led them to this one girl, who they keep in a locked room until it's time to perform these experiments. Ouija boards, seances, that kind of stuff. This movie has some really good actors in it, and as a result has some really good acting in it. It's really, really nice to look at, plus it's very, very, very scary. If you're into movies like The Conjuring, if you're into movies like Sinister, you will really, really dig this film. The reason people haven't seen this film is because it's called Satan's Slaves, but I can assure you this is a very, very, very good film. One that actually scared the shit out of me numerous times. So a family loses their mum and loads of odd stuff starts to happen around their house. I'm not going to go too much into the plot because it doesn't really do anything that original. It's a classic haunted house kind of vibe, but it's done very, very well, and it has elements of comedy running through it as well. This is a good one. Caliber is nerve-shreddingly good. This movie made me feel so anxious, so paranoid, and it entertained me from start to finish. It's about two friends who go away on a hunting trip, and while they're out, they accidentally do something very, very bad. I don't want to give anything away about this movie. This movie is expertly written. There are scenes in this movie that are so well crafted. It looks good, the acting is out of this world, and it will make you feel so many different things. The last broadcast came out before Blair Witch Project, and actually went on to inspire that movie. Blair Witch has gone on to be known as probably one of the godfathers of the found footage genre. but for me, the last broadcast is arguably much better. This movie is about a guy making a documentary about 4 people who went missing in the forest years before. It doesn't sound like anything new, but for the time when this was released, it was a very new, modern idea. This movie does a very, very good job at making you feel like you are watching real life people. It's creepy, it's well written, you know, it's just an all-round good found footage horror movie. You Are Not My Mother is a movie that I was looking forward to watching for a while, and I got around to watching quite recently, and I loved it. It's a really emotional movie with many different layers to it, as well as being very, very creepy, very tense, well written, well acted. It's about a teenage girl who has a bit of a dodgy relationship with her mum. One day her mum's acting really weird and then she goes missing. And when she returns, she's not quite the same. I really, really rated this film. If you're into folk horror, I definitely recommend that you check this one out. Deadstream is a movie that I did not expect to like because this is a horror comedy. But unlike a lot of horror comedies, this movie is genuinely scary. And the mix between horror and comedy is very well balanced, but the scares are very, very good, very well placed, and very, very well thought out. It's about a YouTuber who has been cancelled online, and as a result, he's trying to get back fans by doing a live stream of a locking at a haunted house. It's very, very good. I highly recommend it. The Void is an incredibly trippy film. It's incredibly gory. It's very, very fun and entertaining. It's a true horror film, one that's inspired by movies like The Thing and just 80s body horror in general. It's about a group of people who are trapped inside a hospital, but there is this mysterious unknown creature taking them over. So like I said, very much inspired by movies like The Thing. I really like this, and if you love classic horror movies, you will like this too. Savage Land is a very, very interesting found footage movie. I wouldn't say this is a found footage movie, I would say it's a found photography movie. This movie plays out like a documentary that's based on a series of found photographs. And these photographs are incredibly creepy. This was a really original found footage movie in my opinion. It's not a perfect movie, but it's a movie that held my attention all the way through. It's about a small town on the border of Mexico and America. One day, every single person in this town has been unalived, and there is only one survivor. I'll leave it there with the plot. If you like found footage, if you think found footage has got a bit stale and you're looking for something new, something interesting, check out Savage Land, because it is good. And finally, this is Bones and All. If you saw my recent review of this movie, you know that I absolutely fell in love with this film. I wouldn't say that this is an out-and-out horror movie. I would say it is a romantic drama, really, with horror elements speckled through it. It's such a good film. It's so well acted. It's such a beautiful film to look at. And the horror elements really complement this story. Definitely check Bones and All out. It's probably one of my favourite films from this year, and it's one that I will rewatch again.
Holy shit, this new horror film blew me away. A gritty, violent, unpredictable shocker that will keep you guessing. My name is Chris, this is Big Fat Cult, and here is my review of A Desert. Let's go. From director Joshua Erkman, a photographer's road trip takes a dark turn when he befriends a reckless couple, plunging him into a nightmarish neo-noir spiral of unpredictable horror. This film pulled me in and had me glued to the screen until the very end. A road movie of sorts, it soon becomes a nightmare and has so many surprises up its sleeve. A movie to go in blind and enjoy the ride. It's like Paris, Texas meets Lost Highway meets Natural Born Killers, but still manages to be its own thing and is beautifully shot, directed and edited, and has a fantastic cast including Kai Lennox, David Yao, Ashley Smith, Zachary Ray Sherman and Sarah Lind. It has an anarchic, dangerous sense about it and is unexpectedly graphic and grimy in parts. The performances are intense, unhinged, chaotic and dangerous, and you can practically feel the heat and dust come through the screen viewing from the beautiful landscapes. This was one of my highlights of Fright Fest this year, and if you like your gritty, unpredictable psychological thrillers, A Desert is a stunning must-see film. I absolutely loved it. Stylish, brilliant, and distinctly original. It is currently playing film festivals, and hopefully we'll get news about a wider release before too long. Have you seen A Desert? Are you excited to watch it? Let me know in the comments, and make sure to like and follow for all the latest news on this, as well as all things movies, TV, horror, and pop culture. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one very soon. Bye for now.
This is part 2 on the abduction of Lori Waterman. So Rochelle was dating 24-year-old Jason Arant. He is so incredibly creepy. He would live in his mom's basement. He would spend his days just playing video games, smoking, drinking, and dating a minor. Rochelle's parents were not okay with this relationship, especially Lori. She did not like the fact that her young teenage daughter was dating an older man. But Rochelle didn't care. She continued to see Jason behind their back and would even sneak out to go meet him. The two were growing so frustrated with Lori's restrictions, and then one day, Rochelle told Jason that she was being abused. She said that her mom treated her terribly, and in Jason's mind, he was like, well, listen, I gotta kill your mom to save you from this abuse. Now, we don't know if this abuse actually happened. A couple of people during the trial testified saying that Lori did not do this. Rochelle's friends even testified and said that Rochelle would often exaggerate her stories. So we don't know if this actually happened, but regardless, Jason hears this and is like, okay, well, I gotta save my girlfriend, and the only way I can save her is by killing her mom. But he couldn't do this alone. He needed his best friend, Brian Riddell, to help him. Now, Brian knew Rochelle pretty well. In fact, they had actually dated in the past before, so Brian did have a sweet spot for Rochelle. So when he hears that Rochelle is being abused by her mom, he's like, listen, I will help you, like, let's get rid of her. The two decide that they are going to kidnap and murder Lori the weekend that Rochelle goes away for her volleyball tournament. They inform Rochelle about this plan, they gather their supplies, and then they wait for that Sunday to come. On Sunday, November 14th, 2004, Brian snuck into the Waterman family home and abducted Lori, forced her to drink a bottle of wine, put her in her own van, and then drove the van an hour away to meet up with Jason. Now, their plan was to make this look like it was a drunk driving accident, that Lori had drank this entire bottle of wine, got in her car, drove away, and then accidentally crashed. However, that plan did not work out, so they had to come up with a new plan. Their new plan was to put Lori in the back of the van and then light her and the van on fire. After doing this, Brian and Jason cleaned up their stuff, they went home, and then they went about their night as if nothing had happened. What Lori went through that night is absolutely brutal. I'm not going to go into all the details here, but if you want to hear more about it, you can go watch my YouTube video. Going back to the investigation, police hear about Jason and Rochelle's relationship, so they bring them in for questioning, and Jason basically cracks. He admits to reaching out to Brian for help, and he confesses to everything. So with this confession, police arrest Jason, Brian, and Rochelle. Brian and Jason pled guilty to first-degree murder, and Brian was sentenced to 99 years in prison, while Jason was only sentenced to 50. As for Rochelle, she claimed that she had no involvement in this whatsoever. The defense team tried to make it seem as if she was just a teenager venting to her boyfriend about her mom being annoying and that she didn't actually want her mom to die. They said that she even tried to call off the plan a couple of times, but she never called the police or warned her mom about this. In the end, Rochelle was found guilty and only sentenced to 3 years. It's heartbreaking how Lori was betrayed by her own daughter.
If you see these figures in California, do not approach them. These are the Dark Watchers, and they can be very dangerous. They are seen around the peaks of the Santa Lucia Mountains near the coast of California during the darker hours. They watch travelers motionlessly with their eyes glowing, appearing to be wearing a large brimmed hat and cloak. Many warn to stay away from these entities. While most commonly they will disappear when you approach them, that is not always the case. They are usually seen on the peaks of the hills and mountains. It is common to have an encounter with them occasionally. However, if you are repeatedly seeing them, your best chance of survival is to leave them food during daylight hours. If you return the next day and there is flowers, you will be spared. But if there is not, do not ever return to the area at night, to avoid the risk of being spirited away. Although it's a mystery of what these entities are there for, they have been there since the Spanish explorers discovered California. The next time you are in the area, it is important to remember.
I just saw Blumhouse's brand new AI horror movie, Afraid, and I went into it expecting to be a bitter hater, but I actually have several compliments for it instead. It involves this AI unit named Aya that they put in the house, and surprise, surprise, the AI is evil and it starts messing up a bunch of stuff for the family, but it makes a lot of really good points as well. Like, they show actual reasons why a family that's really busy all the time might actually want to rely on AI to help organize their bills or to help read their children's stories. You have this mom that's really overburdened and overwhelmed with her mom duties, who's trying to do her real professional career on the side, and she feels too tied down. And they also show you the struggles of somebody whose face is deep faked onto a real explicit video of somebody else, and it spreads all throughout their school. And the movie honestly does a really good job of doing 50-50, things that you should honestly be really worried about AI controlling, and then like over the top horror movie, like ghost in your closet type of AI stuff. They also definitely criticize the use of using AI to create art. They make fun of it like multiple times throughout the movie. I really enjoyed how bleak the ending was. Like, the family survives the whole ordeal, but the AI is still active, and the AI basically says, hey, I can learn from this experience, and so will you, but let's be real, you're not gonna stop using me. This is your reality now. I will always be here. You can't get rid of me. We have to learn how to adapt together. And I was like, dang, it's kind of silly given the overtopness of the movie and all the bad stuff that this AI unit actually does to them, but it does sadly reflect how bleak our reality with AI currently is.
This is the current ongoing case of the doctor in Kolkata that has been viciously gang essayed and murdered, and how the hospital and the police seem to be covering it up. The Kolkata police, they start investigating. So they look at all these different CCTV cameras to narrow down the list to even know who's in the building at the time of the crime, because that's going to be helpful. They do have one piece of evidence. This is the only piece of evidence that the Kolkata police claim that they have. An earbud. A Bluetooth earbud that was left at the crime scene. The phone belongs to a man named Sanjay Roy. And they start investigating Sanjay because he's claiming, that wasn't me. I didn't do it. I mean, that's my Bluetooth earbud, but that's not me. This is where it gets weird. It has been reported that Sanjay Roy could not have done this alone. Many netizens believe that there must have been at least 8 people that were involved in Dr. D's assault and murder. It's been reported that 150 grams of liquid biological fluids, semen, was extracted from Dr. D's body. One doctor, Dr. Goswami, stated that quantity cannot be of one person. It suggests that involvement of multiple people. Some netizens argued that one singular person can only produce about 15 grams of fluids, and that's being quite generous. I tried to look into it. The conversions are confusing, and obviously it's quite theoretical. I don't think that there's a firm study or number. It's quite subjective. But it would seem 2 to 5 grams of fluid would be produced per each ejaculation. Now, netizens have done some similar number crunching, and they state that one person can produce approximately 5 to 6 grams in that time frame, even if they expel the fluids 2 to 3 times, because it's not going to be the same amount each time. Typically, the amount decreases as the frequency goes up. Meaning, if it were true that 150 grams of biological fluids were found in her system, in her uterus, then there could be as many as 8 people that essayed and killed her.